Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskaram. My name is Yamini Saripalli. I'm a disciple of the late Gurus Padma Bhushan Dr. Vempati Satyam and his son Sri Vempati Ravi Shankar. I was fortunate enough to train for many years at the Kuchipudi Art Academy Madras under my gurus and the esteemed faculty at the Institute, all senior disciples of Dr. Vempati Satyam. Today I'm going to answer several questions that I've been asked to respond to regarding my experiences learning Kuchipudi from my gurus and my views sort of on dance today. So the first question is, how does the training today in classical Indian dance differ or similar to how I trained? And what changes, would I like to see happen in today's training? So there's a couple of points I want to mention. I think the first thing is patience. One thing I find lacking in many students, today is patience. Minimum 2 years. If you're going 5 days a week, to class, you need a minimum of 2 years in fundamental training. And part of the issue I feel is twofold. One is the parents are very pushy, not just in the United States, but even in India and other places. They're so eager for their children to get on stage. They are not really understanding the value of the fundamentals. So I think that lies with the teacher to educate the parents, especially if the children are young and coming to learn, the importance of fundamental training, that this is the foundation. Without this strong foundation, the building will fall. They cannot become a good dancer. So that's the minimum that's required. The second thing I think is the students are also in a hurry, especially when you get to middle school and older. I think this sort of instant results in our society, so with smartphones, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and even fast food, everything is available at a click. We want to find this item, we want to find the song, we just Google it and find it, which is good for a resource. But I don't think that should be used as a measure of how we should learn at all. Especially the classical arts, they're grown over time, they're cultivated over time. And when it's done too fast or try to learn too fast, it is not something that will sustain the test of time, nor will the quality be there. And so I think that's something to really emphasize to students, how important the fundamentals are. And getting a good training in there. I recall one class, there were probably several classes, but one memory that sticks out to me is, we had done in Master Garu's class, Guru Vempati Satyam's class one day, we had finished fundamentals, we had done some items, and Master Garu asked us, what item do you want to do next? Next day item chestaru, he asked in Telugu. Most of us kept quiet. One student said, second half Jatis master, we'll do second half Jatis, which in Kuchipudi we have the fundamental Adugulu, okay, first half and second half Adugulu, and after that we have first half and second half Jatulu, which are also part of the fundamental training. They're in different talams to give the student practice and a stronger foundation before starting items. And I remember Master's response was, yes, do those ave mukhya items kanta, ave chala important, which basically translates to, the fundamentals are most important, and more than items, they're important. And there were some very senior students, there in the class, and he even made them do that. And so I think not only is it a testament to the importance of fundamentals, no matter how senior you are, it's really important to practice the fundamentals daily. That's something that I've been taught by Master Garu and his senior students since the beginning. So even today, I will practice a good 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes depending, fundamentals, and then only items practice. And that's what keeps your form, and that's what keeps your structure. And it, more than anything, it gives you a discipline. And I think that's really, really important. That, I think, it also helps not only in dance, but in other fields. You know, if you're studying, I'm a physician also, and definitely that discipline has helped me incredibly in my life and in my medicine, in structuring my study schedule and things like that. So so that's really important, the fundamentals, and patience when learning the fundamentals. Do not be in a hurry. And I would also tell the parents, every student is different. You cannot say, well, this child, my child's friend, you know, finished the fundamentals in 2 years. My child is still only halfway through there. How come? Everybody's different. And you have to kind of go with that. And the teacher knows, so trust the teacher. So I think that's, you know, really important. You know, the parents can inquire with the teacher once in a while, how is my child doing? But pressuring them for items and programs and arangetrams or Ranga pravesams, that's something I don't believe in, and that's not how we were ever taught. My parents, I was fortunate, I think only twice in my life, that my father inquired with Master Garu, Ma amma ela chestunadandi. Okay, and that was not even in front of me. I found out through someone else. And you know, so Master gave his feedback to my father, but they would send me for months. And I took a year off in medical school, and not once did they inquire, how come she's not learning this, or can she learn this? Never. And for myself, when my gurus were alive, I never once asked for a particular item or that I wanted to learn something. Of course, there was stuff I wanted to learn, but I trusted in my gurus and my teachers and the process, that they know what's best. 1. 2, the sky is the limit. Master used to say that he's a drop in the ocean of art. So in whatever you learn, whether it be 1 item, 10 items, there's always more to improve on it. And it's not how many you know, it's the quality with which you know it and with which you present it. I want to stress that the quality is really important, more than how many, you know, how much. I think that mentality I see, and I hope that it will change. Going to the next point, I think, you know, focus. I think, again, there's so many distractions nowadays, more than when I was growing up. Although we had, I mean, I did other activities also, but the problem is, I think, with the social media and the electronic stuff that's just available, you know, the DVR and Netflix, and you just have so much accessible at all times, entertainment kind of thing. That's one thing. Then the social media, the smartphones, and I think parents often feel that the kid needs to be in 100 activities, and if you do that, art is not going to come. You have to have the focus, and you know, if you don't, that's okay. But when you have the passion and the drive and that extreme craze and love for the art, you will focus. But I think it's our responsibility as educators, art educators, and I think parents, they have to really help those children focus and not put them in 100 activities. If they really like it, you know, they pick the 1 or 2 things that they're good at and they really like, and they work hard at it. I think that's really important. I just want to share an example here. So when I was in medical school, Master Garu used to send his very most senior students, I was fortunate enough, for workshops. And it was about 4 hours driving, so about 250 miles from where I was studying. And I remember one time I was in microbiology, another time I was in biochemistry, and at those times, you know, I was able to drive 4 hours every Friday and drive back to college or the medical school 4 hours, you know, on the return, and in between have to study. And I still, you know, kept a very high GPA, graduated in the top of my medical school class. This is not to boast. The point I'm trying to make here is that I was very focused and very clear in what I wanted. And so for people to say, well, I don't have time and all these things, I don't agree with that at all. If you really want something, you will make it happen. And that's what kind of focus you need to progress in the arts, okay? And to actually really get to the essence of what it's all about. Because at some point, the body should go on autopilot, and only the mind should only be focused on the music or the song, the essence of the lyrics. And that only happens with rigorous training and practice for many years in the early stages. The last thing I want to say is that I think it is changing, and it's a positive thing, but I don't think it's universal that people are doing it, is body awareness. And so yoga and stretching, that's huge. And it's not just, randomly 5 minutes. I think that part of the teaching methodology, I think, has to include a stretching routine that you teach them from day one. And if they come to class later, whatever it is, they need to finish that stretching routine before they go into it. And for big institutions, I think it would be really nice if they can hire a yoga instructor to as a integral part of the training that they're required to go to. For smaller schools, that's not practical. I think the teacher themselves, has to figure out a good stretching routine that stretches the muscles, tendons, ligaments, and warms those up specifically for what we use for our dance. Because when you do that kind of body conditioning, number one, it prevents injury, okay? And number two, it sustains the life of the dancer for a much longer time. If you really take care of your body with yoga and stretching, you can dance for a very long time. So I think that is crucial. And I see a lot of times, people after they dance, they just run and go do their thing. It's very bad for the body. As a physician, I can vouch for that. And I think the yoga is essential for every dancer. Yoga and daily. That's not just, when you dance. It's daily. To keep the body in form. The body is our instrument, and if we don't keep it in form and in alignment, it will go out of tune and it breaks. So that's the one thing I think that needs to change in the methodology, and to the patience factor. I would really encourage the students to be more patient and more focused. So cell phones off in the class. I mean, there's no question, and I've seen many times where it is on, and it's like, how can they even focus? But I am hopeful for this generation. I think they're really enthusiastic, really passionate. But these little tweaks, I think, can help. So the next question is, how important do I feel that innovation in the dance styles, the respective classical Indian dance styles, how important is that in the choreography as time moves forward with each generation? And I think innovation is very important because the culture does change, the culture evolves, times evolve, and art cannot be stagnant in one place. It must continue to evolve. So I think it's very important. However, I am a firm believer in our traditions, meaning the vocabulary and the structure that Kuchipudi, Bharatanatyam, Odissi, that they all provide is very strong and very important, and it is rooted in a tradition over thousands of years that has stood the test of time. So I think it's important to innovate within that tradition and that vocabulary that is so rich that we've been given, and it reflecting, that particular time period or the particular issues that are happening. I do think people often ask, well, maybe people can't relate to it during 2019, something that was written centuries ago, and I disagree. I think that it can be presented in a different way. The presentation can vary because nowadays the attention span, I feel, is much shorter than people 50, 60 years ago. So the way we present it would likely be different. But the themes, whether you're talking about, for example, these are not the only ones obviously, but like Mahabharata, Ramayana, some of Tyagaraja's compositions, Annamayacharya's composition, these themes resonate with humanity. They're not something that is stuck in one time. They apply to anybody at any age. It's all in the way you approach it and present it in the choreography. So I do think innovation is important. And I have seen my own teacher, so Master Garu's son, Sri Vempati Ravi Shankar, in some of his choreographies, he has taken several of the Nritya Hastas and Bhaumicharis, Akasikacharis, some of them that had not been used by his father, others that had been used, but he presented them in a different way when he felt that it gelled and resonated with that particular composition that he was using. I do want to stress, though, I think it's really important, though, if you're going to innovate in choreography, wonderful, but you have to have a very, very strong base knowledge of your dance style, meaning the fundamentals and the theory also. I think when you have that background and a backbone, then the sky is the limit and you can choreograph. So in answer to the question, it is important, but I believe it should be done within the traditional vocabulary and with thought and with intelligence, not for the sake of just choreographing. You should be inspired and do it because you're inspired and you want to choreograph that, not for the sake of a movement, I'm just going to put it when it doesn't really even fit in the composition, which I've seen also. So I think that's really important as well. But definitely innovation is a huge, important part of any art form. And so the next question is, what was my inspiration to learn dance? And what motivated me and inspired me to continue dance and make it, the biggest part of my life, sort of thing. So I think, number one, my parents tell me actually that from the time they can remember actually that I was definitely drawn to certain pieces of music. I'm talking about like at 1 year of age type of thing. If they'll play certain songs and I like them, they can only play that song in the car. I mean, and I would make a fuss and I clicked with certain ragas, not knowing at that age obviously, and not coming from a musical family, that they're those particular ragas. But for example, there's a song in one of the old Telugu movies, Ramani Avataram, I think it's from Lavakusa cinema, and I was obsessed with that song, and they had to just record it on repeat and play it over and over. So I think for me, I've always been a musical person and inclined to music, so I think that's really important. But from when I can remember, not that I would do it in public, but if I would hear a piece of music, I would always make up some kind of dance routine to it. There's some home videos that are pretty embarrassing of that, but even with when people were not looking, I would make up routines and things like that. So I think for me, I've always loved to dance, and when I was very young, I learned a little bit of ballet, a little bit of tap. I grew up in the Midwest of the U.S., so St. Louis, Missouri. But I would say the inspiration to say, hey, I want to take Kuchipudi seriously and really study it was when my guru, Venkateshwara Satyam Garu, when he came in 1994 on a tour, he brought 3 of his dance dramas, Haravilasam, Kshirasagara Madhanam, and Ramayanam. And when they did stage Haravilasam, in St. Louis, my knowledge of Telugu was not as good at that time. I mean, I spoke it, but not the literary Telugu or Sanskritam. But I was moved to tears. I mean, I couldn't stop crying, and it wasn't a sad crying. It was just it was like an emotional catharsis, which I really couldn't explain. I think I was in ninth grade at that time. And so that was my sort of inspiration. And I thought to myself, I have to learn this. At any cost, I must learn this. And so at that time, my initial exposure to Kuchipudi was through my first teacher, Srimati Sujata Vinjamuri. And then at that time, then my father had approached Master Garu saying, my daughter wants to learn from you. And I was, being, I think I was 16 when I started with Master Garu. And he said, it's going to be difficult because she's a little bit older and she has to work very hard. It's not easy. And my father said, no, my daughter's very determined and I would like to send her to you. And, when I first stepped into Master Garu's class, I didn't dance. I remember that they were doing one senior item, Pralaya Payodhi Jale, as a duet. Master Garu's son, Sri Vempati Ravi Shankar, who is also my teacher, and one of Master's senior students, they were doing this as a duet. The music actually for the composition that Master Garu composed, this is a Jayadeva composition. It's a Dasavataram, but the music has been tuned back in the 60s, I believe in 63, for one dancer, Shilapati. It had been tuned by my music guru, Sri Bhagavatala Sitarama Sarma. And so the combination of two geniuses, Master Garu for the choreography, Sarma Garu for the music, it is an incredible piece. And I knew nothing about it. I had no idea what they were doing, but the tears just kept flowing. And I was so moved that's when I decided that day, that it was in the summer of 1995, that no matter what came my way, no matter what obstacles, no matter who said what, I would dance for the rest of my life, and I would dance Kuchipudi. That's how much I was moved. And I think that's my biggest inspiration is Guru Venkateshwara Satyam. Basically all of his students will say that, because it's not just the dance and the choreography, the way he led his life, the humility with which he conducted himself, and that he really was so humble. His giving nature, not just to his students, to people who needed medical help, to people who were financially disadvantaged. He did so much, and he did it silently and quietly. To me, that was very, very inspiring. And one more thing I want to share that I think shows how great Master Garu was, and why all of his students, senior, junior, advanced, beginner, whatever, we were so inspired by him, but also felt, he was such a divine presence when he was in the room. It was like an aura that we would be on a different plane almost. Is that I remember that when I really, was kind of feeling so stressed out about doing medicine and dance, and I was just a beginner in the training, and I was really scared about, my dance, and I didn't know if I could continue medicine. So Master Garu, I remember he told me that being born as a human, it's our duty to help our fellow human being, and to be a good artist, first you have to be a good human being. And that's sort of, and that went on, and why he thought I should continue this study of medicine and do dance. And so to me, such a great artist, choreographer, guru, to be so humble and talk to me like that, it really moved me. It really, really moved me on many levels. So I think watching his life and how he conducted it, and how he came up so far to be this icon. He is my biggest inspiration. Not only to decide to seriously study Kuchipudi and pursue it no matter what came my way, but to continue going even after he's not on this earth anymore. He's definitely my biggest inspiration, and I know all of his students would say the same thing.